A very good morning and thank you for joining us on the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Philip Muliisa. This morning we gather to have a conversation in a series of issues, but before we get in there, since the time we were here last week, a lot of things have happened in the world. Whether you are in Uganda, you know that the conversation around the protection of sovereignty bill is getting heated every other day, with many people submitting their thoughts on this particular bill in Parliament. We do know that towards the end of last week, the trade order was suspended, and by this time this week, we do know it has been reinstated at the level of cabinet and certainly now into effect in the different parts of the country. We do know that the fuel crisis is something we cannot avoid as a country to talk about, because it is certainly getting on in the different parts of the country. We've seen people lining up. We take a look at the prices of fuel, especially up country, surging. I've seen areas where the conversation is 7,000 per liter of petrol and something around 6,500, and this is a conversation we also continue to have. But also we do know that the community case that is being tried in Gaba against Christopher Okello-Onyum, where we are now, tomorrow we expect a ruling on that particular case, and certainly we wait to see the determination of court, and certainly what the way forward will be for Christopher, and certainly the families and the communities. That has been happening in the nation, but also a lot of things on the outside, part of which we are going to talk about today. But one of them that is unfortunate, we saw in the United States the other day, President Trump being attacked at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. They didn't register fatalities there, but we do know that at least an office of the law was shot at. And it is good news that he survived. He did not die, and certainly we continue to pray for him that he heals from the injuries, and everyone that could have been affected in the series of other misuse of gun activities in the United States, but also the rest of the world. We do know that there is still challenges in Lebanon, Iran, Syria, Ukraine, a lot of places in the world, Sudan here on the north, and many other places in the world. But in the midst of that, we have two other conversations to hold here on the Uganda We Want, and to remind you that this is a show that runs here on Church of Uganda Family TV in partnership with the Interreligious Council of Uganda. And be rest assured that the council is busy watching what the conversation is here, and it is in the knowledge of the Chair Council Presidents of the Interreligious Council, the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, the Most Reverend Dr. Samuel Stephen Kazimba Mugalu. He knows that we are here, and certainly he knows what conversation is going on. In studios today, I do have a lady and gentleman who are here to share with us their thoughts, their knowledge, their opinion about two matters, one of them being curriculum and education changes that are taking effect in Uganda's education sector. And in the second segment, we shall be discussing the xenophobia crisis in South Africa. And in no particular order, I have in studios Madame Nancy Caroline Ayot. She's a programs officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance. Nancy, good morning, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Philip, and thank you, Church of Uganda and Family TV, for hosting us on this platform. Like Philip said, my name is Nancy Caroline Ayot. I work as a programs officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am also a lawyer. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We are happy to have you in studios this morning. I also have an educationist, a teacher, from Janan S.S. Bombo. He heads the physics department there, and certainly he's engaged in a lot of other activities in the education sector at that level. And Dickson Sserunjogi, such a pleasure having you in studios, and good morning.
Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure. I'm glad I'm here with the Family TV. And I think it's a lot of things we're going to be discussing today as far as the new curriculum is concerned. As he has mentioned, Dickson Sserunjogi, and I'm the head of Department Physics, Janan Schools, Bombo Campus. Thank you very much.
We are honored having you here. And on my extreme right is a leader. He has been very active at different levels, whether I talk about the National Students Association, the National Youth Council. When you talk about Bududa district, his name is one of those you get to hear when you land in that district, and certainly even in areas of philanthropy, he has been very active. And those of you that have interacted with him, you do know the kind of service he has delivered in the different aspects he is involved at, and that is Mr. Alex Wamakota. Alex, good morning. Welcome to the conversation.
Yes, good morning. Good morning to our viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in to this great show. My name, as said earlier, I'm Alex Wamakota, and I'm the District Finance Secretary of the District Youth Council of Bududa. And it's a pleasure being on this table this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And colleagues, we start with education. There is a series of, over the years, changes that have been made in Uganda's education system, in the curriculum, in things to do with direct learning in the classrooms, changes made by the National Curriculum Development Center. We've had changes made. Many parents have been talking in the communities, and they say, you see, we've heard that people are no longer going to study. They are just going to be playing at school. And at one time, I remember talking to a parent, and they said, my child came back home. They have something they call a report, but it is not a report. I don't understand what it is. And we are glad to have a teacher here. Just last week, the ministry announced new changes that are going to also be a part of the lower levels of learning, that is primary school. And again, about 2 days ago, there was also another announcement that effective 30th of this very month, we shall no longer have for example, daycare institutions as part of the broader nursery bit of learning. And I want to start with you, Dickson. You are in this teaching business. You are in education. I want you to start us there, especially you are at secondary level. Some of the changes that were introduced at that level, what are those you can point to that you think are the most significant, and how important are they?
Okay, thank you, Philip. As you brought it out, this is a business, and you know businesses are always affecting very many sectors of the country. Now, to put things in a very simple context, there is a lot of things that has changed as far as the education system is concerned, especially at secondary. And now let us go to briefly the significant changes I can talk about in our learning, because parents, as you have said, are saying that kids are no longer studying, and so they feel there is a change. Otherwise, it begins with us identifying that there is a change somewhere. You see, how the delivery is in class has actually not changed, in case I'm up to say it, because I'm on ground, I do the teaching, and I've done so in several levels of schools, that is the first class schools, medium class schools, and then the third world schools. So the teaching in class has not changed, to be specific. We're actually going to class, and then we are doing the actual teaching. And this is all because I've not realized that when you change the mode of teaching, you're going to do a lot of impact. And as far as I know, our learners from the Form 1 class, if I can say, up to Form 4, those learners are actually going to be taught the same way we used to teach, and they actually do the same things we used to do, but now differently. Now, among these things we have changed, to start with, the assessment has changed. Now, we used to do terminal assessments previously, as in our curriculum. I will not call it the old curriculum, I'll call it the previous curriculum, because this is also now old. It is as old as 3 years, if I may say 3 years or 4, yes. So the assessment has changed. We used to do terminal exams previously, which I'm saying that this the ministry is trying to remove. So end of term, the end of year, they're trying to phase those ones out. But because it's a business, as you've mentioned, these ones are technically remaining. However, now what is the actual assessment? The actual assessment is continuous assessment, where we want to assess a learner's ability every after a competency. For example, if a learner has finished a chapter, we have to assess them. And then we put those scores together, we send them to UNEM. So the continuous assessment is actually telling us that learning has not to be assessed at the end of a journey. We have to keep on assessing the learner's ability throughout the whole process.
Dickson, let me understand this so well. Because the language you are using is such technical. You're talking about the chapters, you're talking about competencies, you're talking about... So in our times in school, what used to happen is you study, they tell you the syllabus. This time you have 5 topics to work on, and at the end of the term you'll be examined on those 5 topics. What you call chapters, is it something I can relate to the topics? To the effect that if I finish a particular topic, then the institution is interested in knowing whether I have understood that topic.
Oh, thank you very much. I realize this is something parents need to know. You see, we have chapters which substituted topics in the previous curriculum. That's number one. So if I'm to bring it out very clearly, if in this term I have to teach 3 chapters, at the end of this term, I have to do an item, and I assess my learners in the 3 items. I might bring the word item first, because an item is like a question, which question is a composition of several chapters. So in other words, we are not testing a learner's ability in just one chapter, but an interrelation of different chapters to make a scenario that relates, maybe if I'm to put in a simple context, that relates light and waves and heat. So those are 3 chapters in one. So can I assess a learner's ability to relate those 3 chapters? At the end of the term. But even after the first chapter may be light, I have to assess the learner's ability in that chapter. At the end of the term, I combine the 3 chapters, I make a scenario in real life that I can actually assess my learner into. So that is a thing to consider. So amongst the other things that we are seeing as significantly changing apart from the assessment, anyway, the parents are considering the report to have changed a lot. Realistically, the report changed a lot. We are no longer having grades in form of distinctions, credits, and all that. So this time around, we have the A, B, C, D, E levels of achievement. So if a learner has achieved an A, it's an equivalent of D1 and D2. If a learner has achieved the B, it's a level of C3 and C4 in our previous curriculum, and so on and so forth. Now, we actually want to fight the spirit of we have failed. For example, if a learner in the previous curriculum used to get F9, so F9 is a learner who has failed. But in the current curriculum, there is no failure. So a learner who has got an E is a learner we assume has failed to achieve a lot of things we want them to achieve. That's what we call the below minimum score. Now, briefly, the report card will not have a distinction, so a parent becomes confused. What does A represent? Has my learner passed? How heavy is the A? So A seems to weigh as heavy as the A level is. You know, the A level, you have A, B, and C, and all that. Yes. So that is how heavy it is. So in case you see a learner having an A, that is an equivalent of a distinction. That's a very exceptional, and not as outstanding in any way. Then B is exceptional. Then we have where a learner has just achieved average scores, that is a C and all that. So when a learner has achieved an F, we consider the learner has practically failed out on very many competencies there. Then amongst the things that change, you know, let us put things clearly, Phil. We are looking at a curriculum where the government wants our learners to be skilled, our learners to have knowledge, understanding. There is an acronym we use, it's called KUSVA, K-U-S-V-A, knowledge, understanding, skills, values, and attitudes. So at the end of it all, we want our learner to have something of this type. So the curriculum brings in project work. So previously, we had a lot of rote learning. We used to go to class, and then we have full stop paragraph, underline. Can we continue? So that was the way things were used.
I like that. You put it so well.
Now, we're looking at a way learners can go to class, pick an introduction of something, then they go out and explore about that something, and then develop a project out of it. For example, I want my learners to talk about maybe I want to use an example that I'm very comfortable with, electricity. So I've introduced electricity. Learners have to learn skills about electricity. After I'm introducing about electricity, I want my learners to go out and research Then they come back to me, they told me what they have researched, and then they develop a project out of it. So can Elana do wearing of this law? Just in case Elana is able to do so. So that is a project Elana is going to come up with. Can Elana maybe do a simple repair of something? So can there be a project Elana can come up with, which was not in our curriculum? So, yes.
Interesting. And you people, I think, I don't know if you are as excited and happy about this whole arrangement as I am, but you see, the physics teacher here does justice in breaking down some of the changes that we talk about in here. And he has even talked about the Kuseva. You see, we're going to speak some Russian here. But Nancy, when you hear all these things, first of all, these at secondary level, they have been into force for some time now. He talks about the 3 years. And we do know that even at primary level now, we are talking about new arrangements in there, even at the kindergarten level that government has for a long time had abandoned. Government was not active at that level. It was only open for private players. And I want to ask you, what is your feeling about these arrangements at the different levels, and do you think it is what we need to create the transformation we require for Uganda?
Oh, thank you very much, Philip. And I'm going to speak on this topic, one as a deputy parent, because I do have siblings who have, I have a young sister who started on this curriculum in 2020, and right now she's in senior 6. I also have another young sister who is in senior 4 right now, doing the same curriculum. And let me tell you, it is very different from what we did. Very, very different, and in a good way. I will not lie, in a good way, in a very positive way, because of what they are able to do. And as opposed to what we were able to do and discern and understand. And I think that with time, it will get the needed results. This is where my however comes in, okay? And it is not the children's fault. It is not the teacher's fault. It is the fact that we have a system of life, generally, of economics, of policies, that is not built for the African blueprint, okay? So when we create education and we say we are trying to address our current problems, our education is also based on a system that is not African and that is not true to our African problems. I will just speak to the economics for this matter, because this is the thing. In most African homes, I know people at home will agree with me. When you send your child to school, your idea is that your child will get out of school and make an honest living in the future, a decent, honest living. But here is the catch. The world economy is controlled by the North. Okay, by the Northern Hemisphere, and the 1% of them are white men who own the majority of resources in the world, whereas the rest of the world, which is categorized, you can say, between the bourgeoisie and now the common man. The bourgeoisie are a fairly comfortable lot who have achieved something in this area of competing for resources.
I thought you were going to say who are compromised.
And let me tell you, I said they are comfortable. They are comfortable, so there is no real reason why they need to overhaul a system that they can see somehow working out for them. And yet the majority of people remain poor, exploited, and supporting this economy. Because when they get out of this, right now I hear a lot of conversation around, children will be able to create their own jobs. Let me tell you, jobs are not the issue. The economic spectrum is the issue, to the point that there will be a time when certain issues or certain areas will be oversaturated, because now everyone is choosing a business, or selling what works. However, only the most privileged person, in terms of access, in terms of money, in terms of opportunity, will be able to sell that business. So at the end of the day, it will be the top 1%, or one of the bourgeoisie will climb the ladder and become among the top 1%, but it's all about hierarchy, and this is the life that our children are going to at the end of the day. Okay?
Wow.
Okay, so I'm saying that our systems are built on a Eurocentric blueprint where we have neither privilege nor accessibility that they have. They have all the privilege, they have all the accessibility, and at the end of the day, I will not lie to you. Our children will come out to make businesses or to make technology and still face the same issues of governance that we have in terms of taxes. Who is taxed more? Are the rich taxed more? If we do not have a minimum wage in a country, it will mean that employment in itself, even if more businesses rise up, it will mean that people, capitalists, will pay the least amount of money for the most amount of work that people can do.
Nancy,
Yes.
are we selling dead air to the people?
I say there is room for understanding, because now if we are thinking about, if we are doing this to understand the problems of our society, it will not be long before people understand that no, the new curriculum is not the total solution. It's a governance issue. But also let me just say this. There is also another issue that comes up when we talk about the shift in education in Uganda. And it comes with the emphasis on sciences more than arts. This is a particularly dangerous thing because it means we are creating good innovators, because we cannot deny the sciences are vital for any society to survive. But it means that they also do not have the ideological backing to survive in terms of governance and policies that make these things right. We cannot do only one part and leave out the other part. So I'm saying that we can move forward, but only if we have the right ideological backing. That means that now things to do with governance and the liberal arts, they have to be taught very, very well. Political education as it is, I'm glad to see that it's back, by the way, in the books. And I hope that people do not give it the surface level patriotism teaching. I hope that the teachers can go in depth and teach it the way that we were taught African nationalism at A level, and the way that we were taught the NRM 10-point program down to our history at A level, not going through the whole O level, learning about East African trade without really understanding what the effects were on the local Ugandan and how they translate in the current life that we live.
Alex,
Yes, please.
you see Nancy here has a lot of activism in her. And sometimes when she speaks, you are left with no option but to believe that the world is ending maybe in a few hours from now. But I want to hear from you. See, you lead, for example, the youth of Bududa, but you've also been a part of leadership at different levels. And when you listen to these changes that are being made in the education sector at all levels, including the university, I know there is an ultimatum for our universities that come 2027, I think around June, they should have fully transitioned to a competence-based system. What does it tell you? And when you listen to the youth out there in the communities, what is their appreciation of these particular changes, and do they even see the advantage, or it is an investment that we're going to lose at the end of the day?
I think, first of all, policy framework is not something that you should, at times, first of all, need approval of the whole society, because in most cases, most of the people may not see it, may not see where you're coming from. They don't sit in those boardrooms where, people at the curriculum development center are sitting. They don't know the motivation behind so many of these developments. I was one of the people that, were shocked, and, when this curriculum was being brought up and was in development phase, I wasn't following, but imagine I'm a leader. And then I get to look at that young man in Bududa, who is not even interested, who is not a leader. Sometimes if we need and await their approval, we might never move. However, the cries are there. Some of them, of course, appreciate because they have been promised, basing on what they hear, basing on what they listen, that they want to create a more active society. They want to create more of job creators than job seekers. And yes, it is right, but as our educationist here was explaining it in a bigger context, I was learning actually. He had put me in class. So curriculum development, there are so many changes that have come in place, but there are still so many challenges at the level of government. I think yesterday I saw one of my colleagues put on status complaining of the State House budget vis-a-vis the failure to finance the completion of the A-level curriculum development. So you realize there are still so many challenges that you're not going to give an ultimatum to a university when you've not completed the curriculum development at A-level, because these are the same people that are going to the university. But personally, I have no problem with that curriculum.
So look here, Alex, you see, like if we use that very example, you talk about the financing, and several we've discussed the capacity of institutions to transition. When Mr. Sserunjogi here talks about things to do with people going to research, you don't sit under the tree and research is complete. It is an investment. You need equipment. If it is in the sciences that he's a physics teacher, you need to touch physical things. If it is mechanics, if it is electricity, you have to touch wires and bulbs, and these are things that are bought with money. And the conversation has always been, do we have capacity to provide these essentials in the transition for the secondary school, for the physics, chemistry, biology student, for the agriculture student, for if it's at university, the engineering student, the ICT student, for them to have access to the latest technology so that they understand what they are dealing with. And indeed, we are competing with a child in China and Indonesia and Paris. When you look at that, do we stand a chance at achieving the intended objective of having this learner that is studying in the new curriculum get the skill set required to become an innovator that is going to compete well? Maybe Mark Zuckerberg is way too far now, but get in the startup business and compete with startups in China, in Paris, in Saudi Arabia, in Abu Dhabi, things to do with that.
I think, first of all, I want us to first agree that we are not competing with the people in China and so on. These are, you see, the stage we are in, many of these countries have been there, but so many years back. And a process of development is not skipped. You must go through the phases of where all these countries have gone through to get where they are. But being a graduate of business administration, and most especially when I look at people say we are trying to create to bring up more job creators than job seekers. Now, me, I look at it in an inspiration that you are bringing business people in the field. But the challenges to business are wide. However, where I agree with the curriculum and I'm very okay with it is, let us first create them and we see what they are creating in the society. Let us give time to this curriculum. Let us see its products in the society. Let us be receptive. Then we shall make our assessments very well when we have started seeing these products, in the market. For me, it helps. It gives me courage when I know now, because we have so many school dropouts in my district. But now this curriculum helps a certain student who has not made it to get to the university to do something in comparison to those that were dropping out and engaging in different aspects. Yes, the curriculum does not favor very well the students that are coming from more so the districts of ours, where I come from a school that pays 50,000 shillings per term. It is literally very hard to say this student will compete at the same level with a student at Janan schools. But they have a certain level of skill that they get that they have not been getting in the previous curriculum already in the first place. So let us see them in the market. Let's see what transpires, and then how best they can do at their small level. You get when they fail to make it to get probably tuition to get to Makerere, what do they do next? Do they sit around and start multiplying and creating families and elongate the poverty line in the family, or they try to break it? Then, but also as Nancy said, the challenges now in the business world is, how is the taxation policy? What is the business environment for these people? Are we creating an environment for them to thrive or not? That can be a discussion when we have them now in the market.
All right. Dickson, you see, you are a teacher that is passing on some of these skills. And you earlier on you mentioned the 3 years that you've been delivering some of these to the learners. The changes are many, but it is not enough to say we have introduced the change. It is only effective when we cannot impact on the ground. From your assessment as a teacher and at the level of head of department, but also in an A school like Janan, top school, do you notice impact, positive impact from these changes that have been, for example, at the level of O-level, a series that have been here for some years? Yes, the conversation around A-level, lower primary, we are talking about the new changes that are being introduced. I know those will take a bit of time, certainly, but the impact they are creating so far and that they are bound to create, do you notice something? Do you think we are going to succeed? Do you think that 20 years later we shall come back here and sit and say, yes, this was worth the ride and certainly it was the best decision ever made at the level of education in Uganda?
Thank you so much, Phil. As you have said, I love what you are saying. Let's agree with the fact that the new changes have come to stay, because it came to our notice that we shall remain with the new curriculum, so we shall be with it. Now, as he has said, that some of the times we look at the impact as long enough to wait for, or you can even look at the short-term impact and the long-term impact. Now, shortly, for the short-term impact, I can look at myself as a teacher who has delivered information to my kids in such a way that I want to transform their mentality to leave the old style I used to study and then to the new style. Now, this is a short-term impact. Now, the long-term impact that goes to business and all that, which I actually don't know whether it is going to be effective, because I will not say we have not had the mentality, we are the old curriculumers. I don't know whether we've not had that mentality of job creation, of whatever. We have had it. It has been with us.
Yeah, I mean, I want to create a job and earn money. What are you saying?
Exactly. So all that has been there. Job seekers, job creators, this has been there since the 80s. We have had it. But as Nancy has said, the policy, that is the long term. Now I'm on the short term. Has there been any impact the curriculum changes has done on our students? It's true. Number one, we've seen that because the curriculum is so much of research, even putting aside the limitation of finance to research, we agree that learners are better researchers now. Okay. Because actually there is no day I've taught and I've not given research. Okay. But it takes us back to what you've said. Are the resources well enough to facilitate this? Now, it creates a gap between rural and urban areas. You know, the remote areas will not have the same facilities as we do. Because sincerely speaking, no research without internet. We have agreed in that way. Even if you try to compromise, research goes with internet. Where are we going to research from? Nowhere else. So, research has improved. That is for those ones that have been able to do it. Let's agree with the other fact that learners are now seeing education as a change of life, not a finish of a journey. You know, we used to do it as want to finish a journey. Now this is a change of life. Can there be a change in me? You see, they always send us learners from primary, and the learner actually knows nothing about what to do in life. then it's about transformation. That's why we stop studying at 3:20. So after 3:20, we have to meet our learners, either we have what we call dormitory meetings, we talk to them for a full 1 hour also. 3:30, lessons are done. You go to sports, you go to vocation, you do something. Can you do something? Let class stop. But I want to put it in a very simple context again. On ground, is it on? Is it on that 3:20 we stop studying?
You are the teacher here.
Yes,
Tell us.
it is
At
impossible.
Yanan schools, we stopped teaching at 3:20, and they told us even the morning hours, that business of starting way early should also stop.
Yeah, like you've asked, is this a feasible plan? Of course, it came to stay. But let us look at the end, the short-term end. Let us forget the long-term end. The short-term end is after me finishing senior 4. You know, I must present a document that qualifies me to be a person in the future. That's the certificate. Now, we are seeing that there is a lot of competition that is now just shifting from who has had the biggest number of first grades to now who has had the biggest number of A's. You see? So if you have had around 100 learners, how many A's in total have you got? So in other words, there's a lot of competition now. So will you rule out the fact that we are going to have morning preps? You not rule out that fact. We shall still have morning preps and night preps because we are looking at a competitive world. So the changes are going to be there. And the impact is being seen because now we're having more researchers. We're having a mindset change in learners. We're having learners who now love to study because after 3:20 they know they're going to play. And for us, we used to hate study because you knew at 3:20 you have a physics lesson, and you know a math lesson at 3:20. And then at night you have a chemistry lesson. You see? So now learners feel the privilege of being in class. So that's a mindset. What? The mindset change. Then the other thing is that we are seeing learners who are more collaborative than we used to be. You know, we used to have a curriculum that we are studying in a one-man army. You know, you could look at your book as your own savior, and so you handle it as a person. So that's why the current learners are sitting in groups. You see, you have a group of 7 learners, and so on. So you deliver the content in groups. So for example, even the syllabus is laying it out clearly. That teacher in groups tell the learners to do this, and then they do it. So we're having a group of learners that's actually seeing themselves as a unified sector. So we see it can help us in terms of confidence where one learner cannot do one thing alone and then they can rely on another person. That is true. And socialization is also there. There's promotion of unity, sincerely. We are seeing this on the ground. Only that the limitation is also there. There is competition at the end. So will you defend your results when you stop studying at 3:20? You will not. So meaning that you need to do what the curriculum wants vis-a-vis what the school wants. That's very important.
Now,
I think also slightly
please.
on the other issue of businesses, where may feel like the curriculum really adds something to it. If you follow up very well, most of the people that have had simple startups, they're either starting up something their parents did or their friends are doing. Why? Because that's what they are familiar with. Now, for us who started startups mostly after university is because we first waited until there is something we are familiar with. But imagine someone is familiar with something from senior 1. Most likely they are going to have a startup at around A level if they are really business minded. So that student who already had a mind of starting up something, this curriculum has something, it prepares them earlier compared to us who realized we could do something after university.
Interesting, and it's good you say that because Nancy here has a huge problem with capitalists and governors of the nation and certainly the world. And Nancy, look here, government is saying, because we understand that there is someone that controls technology because they created it, there is someone that controls the flow of fuel because they started the exploration and indeed invested in there. We are saying that let our learners also have the skill to go and do the exploration, to go and innovate in the area of technology. You know, the various industrial hubs and innovation centers that have been set up by this government. And they have also added a parallel learning mechanism, the technical vocational education and training. They are also saying, those of you that cannot go in Mr. Sserunjogi's class, please go to Ginger Technical Institute and learn whether it is construction, engineering, etc., and you can take it through up to the university still, government is offering an alternative, an option, and they are saying, with that, if we create our own technology, then we shall counter the capitalists you talk about. If we teach our people political education, like you say, it is back, then we shall get politicians that will challenge the unfair trade rules you talk about that are put in place by the World Trade Organization and at the level of the World Bank and the IMF and all those institutions at the international level. Is that not good enough for Uganda to get to where it has to be?
Let me set the record straight for our viewers and even for us on this panel. I said this new curriculum is progressive. There is no denying the difference between the learners of today and what we used to be. There is no denial that they have the chance to actually live a better life, but they need the adequate support to get there. They need, and it is what all my panelists said. Maybe my language was a bit more antagonistic or something, but it is what we all agreed on. And one part that maybe I wish we could change is the fact that the technical and vocational is left for learners who, I would say, fail. Yes, who are less talented. So that means that
I think I want to challenge that, because you see, whereas it has been the practice, now we have amendments including a new law passed in 2025, the Technical Vocational Education and Training Act 2025, and a policy thereafter that institutes this as an alternative system of education. You can go through, I forget how they call it, but this normal system that we've grown up knowing, or go through the other one, all through, at all the levels. If these ones are in a primary, there is something in that sector. If secondary, there is something in TVET. If it's university, there is something. And the other day, I hosted here in one of the conversations the commissioner for TEVT at the Ministry of Education, and she has a PhD from that particular section. So you can actually, from the side of now to the less talented, I don't know, privileged in terms of understanding the theories, you can go the other side, study, and get to whichever level.
So here is why I say that it's left for less talented students. So when the students in the formal education system do not make it, i.e. when they get a DE and fail to make it, say, for A-levels, they refer them to go to the technical schools. Many people, and I hope that the TD,
Technical Vocational Education.
Yes. I hope that there is a lot of awareness so that people know that this is a credible option. Because I strongly believe in that option, by the way. I know many talented people who also went through that, and mostly because they could not afford the formal education, okay? They went through that, and now they are incredible innovators. The only thing that is stopping them, of course, is the fact that they do not have access and all that.
Capital, etc.
etc. However, as it stands now and as it stands today, when the students sit in October, November, December, the students who do not make it next year will be referred to the technical or vocational institutes. And this is on assessment from senior 1, senior 2, senior 3, senior 4. And this is not saying that maybe those students are dull, because they are not. They've just not found the right talent for what they need. Nobody's useless in society. Everyone has a talent. But as it stands now, that is where they're going to send them. And it means that, and students who have been in formal education systems know what competence looks like, or what competence is supposed to present as. So when they go into that, I am sure that they may come out as one of the most competent people, even if they're not that talented. So that means that we could also be breeding a crop of very mediocre
Alex,
people.
I see you have...
I think slightly, we're also not going to rest the fact that all of us here on this table are products of the old curriculum.
Yeah.
And
they have advised us to call it the previous.
The previous curriculum. The previous curriculum enacted into us a feeling that we are going to school to graduate and get formal jobs. That is like the primary goal of all of us in primary school. That's why in our days, when you get to a student, even at P7, like the climax of primary level, and you ask for our dreams, the whole class will be like doctor, lawyer, you know. And
I feel it was more of a drill everywhere. A
White
teacher had
collar.
that moment where, what do
Yes.
you want to become in future? Then
now that-
lawyer, doctor.
Like all of us, that was the passion. And that's why most of the people, once they reached senior 4 and they cannot chase that dream, they thought they are failures. That's why most of the people that went to the technical side, they went to it as a last resort, as a final resort, because they cannot probably follow the dream of becoming a doctor as they did, or a teacher or a lawyer as they did before. Now, what I appreciate about the new curriculum is it's not yet in primary school, yes, but it can make a senior 1, senior 2 student understand that they can make a life in carpentry more than a doctor can. You understand? So even if a student is very good at biology and they feel that field is becoming more competitive and this field is better for them, they can easily take on that path. Why? Takes us back to what I told you, that they are more, they have become more used to this practice. That's why you will easily start up a shop when your dad had a shop, because that's what you're used to. Now, if you've left a home in Bududa where your dad has a small piece of land, yes, he's doing agriculture, but at a subsistence level, to push you in a school at Bududa SS, then you realize you can do some tailoring and supply schools in Bududa uniform. You realize you can make life out of it. Why? Because you've gotten used to that setting while in school. That is where the new curriculum becomes better.
Very, very important, and needless to say
can I say
that,
something? I really got interrupted along the way.
Quite briefly.
Okay, briefly. I just want to say that I do agree this curriculum is very progressive, and I also do agree that it's going to go a long way in changing the mindsets of our students. But at the end of the day, I want us to think back to the things that made our civilizations work before we were colonized, because there is a disconnect between a student whose father is already doing farming, has grown up, he's literally an apprentice, and then taking up tailoring to actually supplement the income, instead of actually going to school and seeing that, oh, there is an innovative way for us to expand our farm. I hope I've put my point across.
All right, very important, and it's good we talk about all those things, including the carpentry, the building, and so on, because at the end of the day, it is the carpenter that employs a lawyer to draft for them a contract. It is a carpenter that falls sick and goes to look for a doctor, and certainly it is the bricklayer, when they get a bit of money, they employ the engineer or the architect to draw for them a house plan. And this is the Uganda we want to create today, tomorrow, and for the future, so that it is a nation that serves you and I and delivers that we need as a people. The Uganda we want goes into a very short break, and certainly we'll be right back. Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV, and this happens in partnership with the Interreligious Council of Uganda, and we do commend the team at the Interreligious Council for the series of activities they are engaged in the different sectors of the economy, education, healthcare, the politics, leadership, etc. And certainly this is one of those initiatives that we drive to continue shaping the nation, and certainly speaking the Uganda we want and leading to that nation that you and I want to see deliver for its peoples and compete effectively at the global stage. In studios, I have Mr. Dickson Sserunjogi, I have Nancy Caroline Ayot, and I have Alex Wamakota, and we are discussing a series of things. In the first segment, the conversation is around education, the curriculum changes, and the other changes that are introduced at that level. But before we transition from that topic, Dickson, one of the concerns that have been rising in these changes that are at the different levels, primary, secondary, one of them started with how do we have a new curriculum, for example, at O level, that is in between the education, and at the lower level where it all starts, there is no change. So you're getting someone from the old to new, then back to old at A level. Then before we knew it, there was some engagements here and there sourcing money, then something new is introduced at A level. But still you get the feeling that even when it is there, particular details of the same are not so clear for the schools themselves, for the learners, and for the parents. Take us there. Has the system been streamlined so clearly for you, the implementers, to actually look at what is supposed to be done and know what it looks like and what you're supposed to do?
Okay, thank you, Phil. I want to briefly bring this out. You see, we are transitioning, as you've said. You see, baby class, the nursery section, the curriculum was changed. So they're no longer studying the way we used to study A, B, C. They're not studying sounds. So we appreciate that. Let's go to primary. The same way it was is how it is right now. So the old curriculum is still there. They would say the old curriculum is still there in primary. So you transition from new to old. Then you go to O level. It is now new curriculum. So isn't there a confusion there to start with? Next. These learners that have finished up the new curriculum have to progress to A level. We are confused, we as teachers, me personally, I'm confused on what I'm teaching my learners. Yes, I know what I'm teaching them, but how to give it to them?
Dickson. You as a teacher, you see, as a parent, at the start of the term, I sent my child to Janan schools. And maybe for the record, in the last 2 years I have graduated my family has graduated 2 learners from Janan schools.
True.
At A level and at O level. Please tell me, you as a teacher, you say you are confused about what you're giving the learners. What is that?
Now, the confusion is not about that what we are giving them is wrong, because as I said previously, the content has not changed. But how to deliver it vis-a-vis what UNEB expects, because we respect UNEB much more. Because if UNEB has not yet clearly given us what we expect to assess our learners then we actually don't know whether to deliver it in this way or this way. The syllabus is there. Let us accept that. The syllabus lays out how we are supposed to deliver this. But at the end of it all, UNEB does its own business and sets for us an exam that requires you to actually teach the learners, make the learners cram a few things, make the learners understand a few things, and make the learners pass out. So now, we are in the fix of whether we should respect what UNEB has done for us at O level, or we should strictly follow the syllabus. Because the syllabus is our guide on what we're supposed to deliver. So the content is still clear. The schools are actually giving it the normal way, save for a few things that were removed, because there are a few things that were removed. The old style content was actually removed. So we are still giving up the content we used to give them, but now we are waiting on UNEB to give us a sample to check. Will we give this in this way? Will we leave this? And where should we leave it? So that's where we are fixed right now. So transitioning, from the new system that is senior 4, UNEB had to, maybe the ministry had to put an abridged curriculum that is for A-level, where the learners that start in 2024 had to progress to the next 2 years with a look-alike of their old style of learning, that's the new curriculum of learning. So in other words, we are waiting on UNEB to give us a way forward on what we are going to assess our learners with.
So, Dickson, one of the things that come to my mind here is in the previous curriculum, for example, at the different levels, what you call assessment, the examination, we used to have, especially for candidates, there was a time we called mocks. I don't know whether they still exist, but also even the internal examinations, mid-term, beginning of term, which I understand now they are no longer there. You do assessment per chapter. But so now, as the school and even the other schools, how are they creating this assessment? Because in your introduction, you did say that these assessments are then sent to UNEB for the final assessment, adding everything. So when you send these assessments you're doing at the internal level, doesn't UNEB give you feedback? What is the situation like?
Okay, let's put this again to a simpler context. You see, UNEB expects something from us, and we also expect something from UNEB. What we call the continuous assessment activities are what we do at school here, and then we give them to UNEB. Now, UNEB wants us to give it 20% out of the 100 of the learner's ability. So in other words, can I say UNEB assesses 80% at the end of cycle? End of cycle is the end of the 4 years. Now, currently, we don't know how UNEB will assess the senior 6 students that are actually sitting for their UNEB this year. Now, because we are not aware of that, it becomes very technical for us to know what exams to set. As you have said, mocks are still here. End of term exams are still here. Let us put things even clear. Even holiday work is still there in very many schools. Holiday work, tests, mid-term, whatever, all of them are still there. Because as I mentioned about it, from the word go, these are businesses running. These are schools. And so there must be competition. If at the end of the cycle there is going to be a competitive way of looking at schools as who has scored the most number of A's, then you have to defend the A's by assessing your learners much more. So the question is, what are we assessing in the A-level curriculum? We are assessing learners basing on what we expect, not what is going to be there. So our expectation, for example, if I say I'm expecting UNEB to set in this way, so I set an exam in that style. Okay. Because no exam is another. Can I say we have no old past papers for the old curriculum for the students who are now in senior?
But I imagine at that level, UNEB should as simple as giving a template of what they are going to be setting and how it is supposed to be done, because this is more of a management issue than a technical educational issue. And certainly the team at UNEB, a very competent team led by Mr. Daniel Odong, should be able to solve this lacuna such that our learners and indeed the institutions do not find themselves in this point of confusion. But thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for the contribution to that topic. And we want to shift to the conversation across the border and down south to South Africa. And we do know that severally our colleagues there who have gone through a series of challenges but also have had a series of opportunities at that level. One of the things that get to happen is because of the challenges in that country, sometimes the citizens, the residents get to imagine that part of their problem is fellow Africans that come from different nations to that country, and therefore what they do as a way of solving that problem is attacking them, beating them up, telling them to leave their nation. I've looked at reports showing people being chased from as technical places, as hospitals. You find someone on medication and they tell you, get up and leave this place, etc., etc. And I want us to take the conversation there. Alex, I want to start with you. You've been severally involved in some of these, first of all as a leader in Uganda, but also observing some of these things. When we pay attention to this current episode of the xenophobia crisis in South Africa, first of all, what have you heard? How bad is it? And certainly, what should we pay attention to?
What is in South Africa in the past few days and now is very regrettable. It shows how fast people forget where they've come from, and it's one of the reasons when we were discussing about the new curriculum, some people initially used to think they are completely erasing whatever was being taught earlier. And I used to appreciate the fact that much of the things that we're being taught are very necessary. For instance, things in history and so on. Seeing black people chase away black people in a white-dominated country is really heartening. There have been so many cases I've been following. The first step I saw was a Zambian national. I've been seeing so many videos on social media. A Zambian national who was found in the market. This is a gentleman who had been in South Africa, I think, for the past 20 years. They found him on the streets. He was operating a saloon shop. And, he was explaining to them, telling them how he has an 18-year-old son, born and raised in South Africa, and they asked him to go with his son and a South African wife, and he told them, my wife is deceased, and this is the small business I do to live with my son. Now, when you look at so many of these things happening, and then you remember how much Kenneth Kaunda fought to make sure that South Africa, the black people in South Africa get to experience independence. It's really, really heartening. From Zambian nationals, I kept on seeing so many cases with the people from Congo, Zimbabwe, Malawi. We've seen so many videos. Until of recent, I've been making complaints about it on our social media platforms and different groups that we get in. Till of recent, when I saw a post affecting a Ugandan, I think, someone posted in Weird Confessions. There's a page on X where Ugandans normally post their confessions, and someone posted a video of a South African company laying off all black foreigners who are employed there. And this person specifically said officials in South Africa have asked this company to lay off all black foreigners. All these things are happening at the watch of the South African government, which, the independence of South Africa is very recent. And it's very recent that most of the people that are in government right now, they understand the magnitude of what it took for them to have the independence. And if they are also just watching all these things happening, it's really heartening. And as youth of Africa, because for a better Africa, it doesn't necessarily mean that Uganda should be better. As youth of Africa, we really say this is regrettable, and we shall not just sit and watch it happen. We shall try to do something in our means.
Nancy, you see, Alex, thank you for that bit of taking us to South Africa and telling us what's happening there. But let me start here. Alex talks about, for example, the contribution of Kenneth Kaunda, and I may extend that. The contribution to the fight against apartheid South Africa was one where almost all Africans were involved, especially the nations that had been independent at the time already. And whether you talk about, yes, Kenneth Kaunda, Mwalimu Nyerere, the contribution of Tanzania, Uganda hosted bases of the Umkhonto Wesizwe here in this country. And you take it to Angola, take it to Zimbabwe, take it to all these nations, they made a contribution. At one time, you remember there is one famous video that normally surfaces whenever these things come up. I think it's by President Thabo Mbeki, who several talks about when they attended the Organization of African Union meeting in Kampala here, and they were asking President Idi Amin about what the agenda for the union should be. And President Mbeki says, Idi Amin, they were saying, let us focus on South Africa. And in the public, he says, Idi Amin told them, no, we should not focus there. Let us focus elsewhere. But when they left the cameras, he told them that, no, that is a military trick. I want our enemies to think we are focusing there, so they put their energy there so that we can ambush in South Africa and get the change we want to see there. And this tells of the contribution of the rest of Africa to this cause that liberated South Africa. Nancy, when we get to a position now that at the time when you are supposed to return a favor, you are doing the opposite, what does this tell of the African peoples, the leadership, the governance, and certainly the state of affairs on the continent?
Thank you very much, Philip, for that question. And allow me to just say two things can be true at the same time, okay? One, the South Africans, it's not just a small section of South Africans who think that black people are taking away their jobs. It's a big section, and they face legitimate economic inequalities. They face very legitimate economic inequalities. They are part of the majority who still live in townships, who have majority unemployed young people, who live in areas infested with high crime rates. And it is legitimate that they live in the worst situations possible. But they live in those situations like all African youth in the continent. That is the difference. The only difference is their country had the opportunity to be developed like a white man's country, okay? For the white man and by the white man. And I still believe that South Africans today do not fully believe in the freedoms that are provided for them in their constitution, or in the freedoms that were given to, that came to light in 1994 or April 27th. Like, this is the month. This is Freedom Month in South Africa. South Africa has the 1% white minority holding the biggest amount of wealth in terms of land, in terms of capital and income. They are billionaires. Even their wineries, 90% are white owned, and white people benefit from that. So where is this disconnect coming from? And this is where the importance of governance comes in, okay? Because over time, not only has the indoctrination gone deep, it has gone so deep that these people believe that the 80% of the resources that white people own is white people, is for white people, and that the rest of the percentage that they continuously fight for is the only space that black people have. So now come in our immigrants, and let me just say that migration has been a long-standing practice of different people of all ages in every type of history. In our East African history, we know we start with migrations. He's a physics teacher. I was going to say you're a teacher, you know, but it is what we learn first in all of our history. It is in the Bible. It is in the Quran. It's everywhere. So every time that people of the world are uncomfortable somewhere, they have to migrate to see what other opportunities they are. So in South Africa, are there undocumented African immigrants? Absolutely. They are there. Are there well-documented immigrants? Yes, also they are there. So the hatred comes from the lack of ideological guidance of the black people of South Africa, because they believe that their problem and their economic issues come from the black minority immigrants. So even where the crime because I can't cite figures because I was looking at different records and the numbers are clashing, but it shows that the number of crimes committed by young South African males, who are the majority of people who commit crimes, from robberies to all that, and it is expected where there is idleness and unemployment, but also where there is a stiff competition for resources, is those crimes are committed by South African males, young South African males, majority. And let me be clear, it is majority, not all the crime. And the 1% or the 0 point something percent that is committed by immigrants is the one that gets amplified. So right now, the South Africans feel the pressure on the black South Africans feel the pressure on their resources. They do. It is legitimate and it is wrong on every level, but it isn't the African immigrants, and nobody can tell them otherwise, because also the victimization and the indoctrination is so deep. And one of the things that they say is that we have fought for our country. Why don't you go back to your country and make it better?
And I want to start it there, especially that you speak of indoctrination. You see, Mr. Sserunjogi, one of the things that have made South Africa turn out the way it is that, like she says, it has been a white, whether you can call it an Afrikaner-controlled economy. And what that gave the South Africans is, please get the leadership in the cameras, but do you actually have the leadership? What leadership do you have as a nation if 88% of the population control less than 10% of the economy, of the factors of production, and 9% of the population controls 90% of the same, the factors of production, the economics, like she talks about? And when you talk, for example, about education, the education system that was available in apartheid South Africa, you can only say two things that changed of the same. That now it changed the name, but second, it also allowed just a few of the high-end elites of the South African society that are black. Today they are able to access some of the top schools in South Africa, and that is the reality, to the extent that a black South African grows being told that a white man is sacred, that is a no-go area, please do not cross here, that you have a limit, there is an area beyond which you cannot go. And I want us to start there. Dickson, for a nation that is looked at many fronts as one that leads Africa, whether you're talking about growth, when you talk about it is the only African continent country that has hosted the World Cup, for example, it has hosted a series of other international, it is a member of the G20, it is speaking at that level. What should be the, first of all, the position of South Africa on the continent? But secondly, how do we transition from this business of looking at one another as enemies, adversaries of the other? Because yes, we talk about South Africa today, but it is also to just wake up today and you're trying to process a visa to get into a typical African country, whether it is Morocco or any of these West African states. The kind of processes you go through to secure a visa to some of these nations as an African who is just crossing a few kilometers to another country, it is terrible. Why are we like this?
Okay, thank you, Phil. I'm just buying her ideology. You see, we are digging something deeper in Africa, and surprisingly, I don't know if I even calling it xenophobia, because it is just targeting Africans living in Africa.
Afrophobic.
So it's Afrophobia, in other words, because this is something that is happening in Africa to Africa by Africans. It's Africa, and we are Africans, and then it's Africans doing it to fellow Africans. Because as you've said, it is something much bigger. We are addressing a concern that is extremely big, way beyond our imagination. As she has said, there is a lot of things that we need to address, as you've said. The resources are now overwhelmed. Let us agree with that. Be it with the education, be it with the health, be it the resources are just overwhelmed. Now, me looking at South Africa as one of the biggest economies in Africa, anyway, the biggest economy in Africa, which is supposed to give us a limelight on what we are supposed to do.
A blueprint of how we should move as a continent.
We are actually looking at this as, can we avoid you? Can we avoid what you are doing? Because now amongst the most targeted nationals, there is Nigeria, you've seen that. There is Ghana, there is Mozambique. You see, they are targeted. Now, what is the actual problem to address in South Africa? Because I would not say that we have a solution to the xenophobia, the Afrophobia that is happening. So, can we address the problem? Can we look at what the actual problem is? The problem dates way back from the apartheid time. Because they have had almost half a century previous, I think from around 1948 to around 1994, close to half a century of legitimized dehumanization. There was a lot of legitimization of segregation. And then this spirit, this evil, this ghost keeps on tracking the nation. Let's agree with that. Because we agree it is the fastest growing economy in Africa. It's the biggest economy in Africa. But now it is struggling with close to 43% of youth unemployment. So every 10 youth you meet in South Africa, between 15 and 34 years, 4 don't have jobs. They're just there to be there. Then what will they take of a Nigerian national who comes in South Africa and has a job? And the Nigerians are not operating very many businesses. They just operate in salons, restaurants. You see them operating in small shops. And then these are the youths that are looting these shops. So are we addressing something very small or something way bigger? Now, let us put it again to another context. We are looking at South Africa, a country basically made up of, I think, the Dosha, the Sotho, and the Zulu. So now, there is going to be a time, because we have seen it, where I tell you you are not a South African because you don't speak your language. I mean, our language, I mean. Because to take it in a simple context here, you don't speak Uganda. So you are not a Ugandan. You see? That's where they're heading to. I've seen it in some of the videos. So you don't speak Zulu, so you're not a South African. So please leave this place. We've seen the Operation Dudula. You've heard of it.
Yes.
And they're now legitimizing it. It's becoming a political party. They went and raided their hospital. And because you don't speak their language, Sotho, you don't qualify to be given medical services. So,
well, Dickson, we pause it a little bit at that. We are heading into a very short break, but the conversation about this, whether it is xenophobia, whether it is just ideological disorientation, like she calls it, or even beyond that, is a conversation we are continuing to have. But let us head into this very short break, and certainly we're going to be right back. Welcome back from that very short break. It is the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Philip Muliisa, and today we are having a conversation. In the first segment we spoke about education, and here we are talking about a matter that is, yes, with a peak in South Africa, but certainly also when you look across the continent, you have a series of other societies and how we relate as nations on the continent. You realize it is a problem that is quite wide. For example, sporting lovers, those of you that attended the recently concluded AFCON. You don't know what happened to some of the people in the footballing centers in Morocco, and some of the scenarios that were not pleasant to watch as Africans treating Africans in a particular way that is not decent, that is a bit immoral. When you talk about how we get to access some of these jurisdictions, the other day I was listening to the spokesperson of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and he says, whereas we should have had free visa travels between Uganda and South Africa, but for the fact that South Africa says they are close to 20,000 Ugandans in South Africa who either their visa has expired or they entered illegally into the nation, they cannot accept Uganda to have visa-free travel to South Africa. And some of these things keep challenging the nation. We've had conversation around, yes, the inequality, the lack of opportunity in this country, and just like the continent is. Last evening I was listening to an episode by former president of South Africa, again, Thabo Mbeki, who was saying the problems we get to see on the African continent are as a result of the failed African Renaissance. And he says the Renaissance, after independence, was supposed to deliver a structure that was going to propel growth for the continent, such that the youth of 2026 will not struggle with opportunity, with a job, with an education system that does not serve them well, with travel through the continent. Why should I be still holding a passport, and when I cross just a few kilometers to Zimbabwe, I need another one, Malawi, another one. Yeah, I should, when I move from Uganda to, it is Professor Lumumba that puts it so well, that you have 33 useless currencies on the African continent, things like that. And in the words of Mbeki, he says, it is just a failure of the African Renaissance. Had we achieved what we wanted to do post-independence, setting a standard of how we should relate with one another, then at this level, we should be already in a space that delivers for the people. And Alex, I want to get back to you. See, we are fighting. He spoke about organizations that, for example, lead some of these risings in South Africa, Operation Dudula. But there is even more, the March and March movement. It is also there. The Amabinga community, they are terrorizing people. And I was looking through the episodes that have been happening. People keep on dying. It is recorded in the episode of 2008, over 60 people died. In this 2015, people died in tens. The fighting, and someone asked me, and I could not offer them an answer. They said, okay, the Africans, maybe they take a few jobs, and they gave me an example of recently there was a time the miners in one of the gold mines were striking. And they say when these people said we can no longer work at this specific pay, they left, and the mine owner sourced some other Africans to come and work at the mine. So the other ones lost their job, and he said, these South Africans say, had these other Africans not been present in South Africa, therefore there was no option. This person was going to increase their salary to the level they wanted. I hear that, but between an employer that is paying you very little money and you want an increment, and someone who is willing to work at that particular value, who is the problem? Is it the person that has more problems than you, that is willing to work for the very little money, or the person that is paying you the little money? And I couldn't answer that. Maybe you have the answer to that. Who is the problem here? Is it the 4% immigrants in South Africa? Is it the 9% that are in control of 90% of the economy and factors of production? Whom should we blame for the challenges of South Africans? And like she says, these people maybe are just pushing further the concept of apartheid to the extent that the whites were able to oppress whoever was below them because they had the power. And now these black South Africans are also able to oppress these foreign blacks, because at the end of the day, they are the only people to whom they have more power than?
Who is to blame in South Africa? I personally think the blame is to go back, way back, on the people that fought for the independence of South Africa. Because they achieved independence on paper. They can have a black president, but the government and policy and all implementation is done not by them. Let me give an example. If there was a policy on a minimum number of nationals that you employ in your mining farm, let's say you have 100 employees, 70 must be South Africans. The third, even if you bring the third from another country, they will not match the people that are protesting on their pay. You understand? However, nonetheless, Africa were defined by the spirit of Ubuntu. And it is unbecoming, regardless of the reason, that you wake up one day and you say these Africans should live. One of the most, I find it sarcastic ideas that they were fronting was, we fought for our country, then go back and correct your countries as well. Like a young South African who is born past 1994 feels that the independence they have right now is because they stood up and fought alone as South Africa. They couldn't sustain that fight. They were so infuriated that if other African continents could not rise up together, if other African countries could not rise up together with them, they wouldn't have the country that they are talking about. However, on the other hand, where I say the blame needs to go back to the people that fought for the independence, I could understand the context of President Nelson Mandela, because he wanted to save an economy. He couldn't ask the whites to leave. But also, as an economist, I believe economies are built. We have had a time when this country's economy was shattered when President Amin, expelled the Asians and the Indians. And but with time, the economy has grown. Economies can be built, but the sovereignty of your people, the independence of your people, is something you cannot just build from. It's a one-time chance that if you get it and if you have a chance to get it, and then you let them grow themselves.
You see, you remind me of the conversations that happened just after independence and at the formation of the Organization of African Unity. The conversations that happened between President Nkrumah, Gamal Abdel Nasser, people like Nyerere. Of course, we had a bit of factioning in there, but still the conversation of let us have a united Africa. Let us have an Africa that operates as an entity, not as independent states, because if we do that, it will be very problematic at the end of the day. After we have people who are presidents in every few kilometers here and there. People will get identified with those positions, with those jurisdictions, and that going forward, we shall have the conflicts we even see in other jurisdictions. I have severally argued with people about the world wars, and I tell them that I 100% agree these were not world wars, they were tribal wars in Europe. Yes. And it is the thing we risk with here. If we have these small entities, you have something called Uganda, and you have a few tribes in there, and when they move out a few kilometers, they're like, we are here as Ugandans, we are abroad. But we're just a few kilometers, less than 1,000 kilometers in the north or the east, you're in DRC, you are here. And so when you look at it in that perspective, do you think the South Africans made particular mistakes at the level of getting power from the apartheid government to the black people?
Yes, definitely they did. As I told you, you could understand as a leader, you could look at it in the context of an activist and in the context of a leader. Now, in the context of a leader, I could understand that Nelson Mandela wanted to save an economy, because the economy of South Africa was entirely, actually by then there were no blacks running the economy, it was entirely with the whites. So expelling them from the country meant killing.
He didn't even have that power because
He didn't,
they just handed him a few privileges to become president.
If they kept the fight, it was not necessarily that, okay, they have handed us. The fact that they were willing to even compromise and hand over the power, it means there was a point of there's enough pressure.
Yes.
So if they kept the fight, if they didn't look at the short term of goal of let's get the independence and have be crowned the first South African president and move on, because that was the idea of his wife. His idea was, it doesn't make sense that we have independence and our people are squatters on their own land. And our people cannot access some places within the country because that's a no-go zone. It's meant for the whites. Our people can still not go to certain schools.
And she was called a radical.
Yes, she was called a radical. But
forced out of
the idea of fighting for African independence was entirely radical. Even Nelson Mandela himself being taken to prison, it was because he was radical. Now he comes out an understanding man. That's why actually when he says, my man must have died in prison. Because this is a very different man that I'm seeing. So you can't tell me you're fighting for independence from colonialists and you were not radical. All those people that were fighting for independence were radical. So you had to take all those radical steps because they were not fighting for 5, 10, 20 years of South Africa. They were fighting for hundreds of years of South Africa. So the ideas of growing the economy and so on would be things that people that were coming 50 years from that time would think about. But for now, they had to make sure that South Africans are enjoying the fruits of their independence.
Nancy, you have a lot of challenges with governance, especially on the African continent. I want to hear from you. Whenever there are episodes of this xenophobia in South Africa, to begin with, the problems are in African-dominated areas. In the white settler communities, you don't have a lot of problems.
Because there are no blacks there.
Yes. And the reaction of the government of South Africa, yes, we've seen statements, this is illegal and the law is going to work on you, and we've seen these comments. And the only politician I have heard directly speak against this is Julius Malema, and he has been very vocal throughout the episodes, but generally it is understandable, it is not a popular standpoint for any politician in South Africa. And I want to start, in your view, even by agreeing that it is not popular for you to say that do not attack fellow Africans. I remember the backlash that Malema got during the recent election, where he was saying we are going to open our borders, we shall allow our fellow Africans to move in and move out, and we work together because we're a brotherhood, we don't have the divisions we talk about. Leadership. Do you sense a leadership problem? Is the leadership okay? Is it a people problem? Where do you notice the problem?
Thank you very much for that question. So, first of all, I'm going to put an analogy, okay? Because in South Africa, and the way that wealth is distributed is like a person who has a dog ring and has put in the smallest cage very many dogs, and then taken out another breed of dogs to be in special cages. So the other ones have to fight tooth and nail. Now imagine if you put in more dogs in an already confined space, they will kill each other. And those dogs do not know that it's not their fault. They're just confined. This is the point that I already made. Secondly, the independence of Africa never went down well with the colonialists. That is why immediately they had to form up a system that would control the world alternatively. That's where neocolonialism and the neoliberal economies come in. It is why every socialist leader who was Pan-Africanist was somehow overthrown or murdered on this continent of Africa. We know that.
I think you should save the word somehow. They actually
were killed. They were all killed. They were all murdered. And Julius Malema, for all his faults, because he also has some, for all his faults, is in danger, and right now he's in jail for
not yet in jail,
yes,
but almost.
He's almost going to jail. And it's because they've been waiting for this opportunity to get him, okay? So let me just say that South Africa getting its...
As you can make it brief.
Yes, its independence in 1994. In 1994, put up a certain type of conservative white rhetoric whereby they began to formulate a plan to redominate the world, to bring back racism, to bring back economic exploitation of Africans and the dominance of white people. So the Freedom House says that the decline of democracy in the globe overall started in 2006. And those are where things like Project 2025 in the US had already started formulating. With the coming of Obama in power, they had already started commemorating. These things are anti-racist. I mean, they are anti-rights and also anti-democratic. So, with Africans attacking fellow Africans right now because of the cage they've been put into. Because our African countries are all suffering from democratic and leadership challenges. In Uganda in itself, we were discussing last year around this time, we were discussing the fate of migrant workers in the Middle East because our girls were being murdered, thrown off buildings like that. It's a global problem. And now that this is being amplified, it's a bad thing, let me tell you. It's a bad thing for Africans to attack each other like that. It is the most anti-black, anti-African thing that has ever happened, time memorial. But it also frames Africa as two things, okay? It frames us Africans as violent people who cannot govern themselves. That is how it's going to continue. They're going to say that because our countries are generally bad, we had to go to a country that is a white majority that actually works and suffocates the other people, not focusing on the fact that there are policy implementation challenges. But also on this panel, please give me like 2 more minutes to wrap this up.
Unfortunately, my producer is giving me signals. I have about 3 minutes to close this conversation.
Okay. Let me wrap up real quickly. At this rate, if Africans do not work hard to free their countries from anti-democratic forces, who are also neoliberal forces within the continent, we're going to go back into full-blown colonialism, because not only are these economic challenges happening, they're also happening at the very same time when we are again reaching a world war, while there are military bases popping up all over the continent.
Yes. Unfortunately, the conversation is so sweet, but when you say world war, you scare us the more.
No. These are the realities. These are the realities of our time.
But Dickson, look here. And my question to you, as I create a basis for it, have Africans lost the fight? And why do I say so? We are fighting each other in South Africa, in Sudan, in Chad, in Mali, in Guinea, in DR Congo, in Mozambique. I can state the list is endless. South Africa recently hosted the G20 meeting. United States of America boycotted the meeting. They have accused the nation of white genocide. Right now, as I speak, the next G20 meeting that is going to be in France, South Africa is not invited because apparently they say there is a white genocide. When you look at our countries in the fellow Africans in the Caribbean, they are not at ease. There is no money, save for Guyana that is making a few coins now of oil, courtesy of the World War. And Nancy talks about that starts in Iran and spreading across the world. We know that the fuel crisis is also in the nation. So when you look at this, and we continue to walk in a path that is designed for us by the whites, if Rwanda is disagreeing with Congo, they fly to Washington, they say, please come and take the minerals so that you can allow us live peacefully. If Uganda has a disagreement with Rwanda, we have to sit somewhere in London. Have we lost the fight? And do we have a chance coming back in 2 minutes?
Briefly, thank you very much. Number one, you have not lost the fight to start with, because anyway, it is 50-50. Because as she has been saying, there's a lot of neocolonialism that has come in to cause all this. But to be specific, there are as many fights we have done to curb this down, because we wouldn't even be here speaking about it, because we are against it to start with. Again, we've seen at the Freedom Day, I think it was last week, this week.
It is this week.
This week. But there's a lot of information that we have received that the NAP, the National Action Plan, is trying as much as it can to bring in as many laws as possible to curb this. So I cannot say we've lost the fight, because we are engaging. But again, it takes us back to the other 50% that we have lost. That we are actually not doing what we need to do. We are doing something, but not what we need to do. Because as Uganda, maybe sometime to come, we can also receive the same thing as South Africa is receiving, because we are also having very many non-Uganda nationals here. So in time to come, we may receive, because we are seeing as many unemployed youths as possible. And that's the main cause of the Afrophobia in South Africa. So the 50% we've not fought may bring us a problem. But again, we have done the 50% to fight this, because we have not sat down. Nigeria is also doing so. You've seen our previous Nigerian government has tried to evacuate some of its nationals. It has brought them back to Nigeria, just as I video previously. And then it has advised several of them that in case of such and such a condition, don't open up a shop. So they have done their best. In case of such and such a thing, please don't do this. So they're trying to advise them. In case you feel you're overwhelmed, please come back to Nigeria. So the fight is there. But are we fighting the way we're supposed to fight? Maybe that's where the question would be.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe, yes, I am out of time, but just one question. I want to bring this back to Uganda, and it is going to be just a direct yes or no. The way Uganda is running today, when we look at what is in South Africa, they are fighting, yes, we agree, they are fighting for opportunity. Whether their fight is misplaced or not, it is opportunity. Is Uganda safe from such a situation? I start with you, sir.
And insecurity anywhere is a threat to security everywhere.
Good.
We can do it if we fix this country today.
Of course it can come. We can have Afrophobia here, but we are able to fight it, because we have done so. And
Dickson Sserunjogi, thank you so much for joining us today and for the amazing thoughts you've shared with us. Nancy, Caroline, Ayot, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us today. And indeed, Alex Wamakota, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us today. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for joining the Uganda We Want here on Church of Uganda Family TV. Special thanks to the production team, and thank you to the Interreligious Council of Uganda for being a part of this journey. My name is Philip Muliisa, and let me say good afternoon, and may you all have freedom always.